Remember the hereafter, and you will remember why you are here. Remember the hereafter, and you will remember why you are here and what you are after.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen, amma ba'd fa'a'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Please repeat after me. As-salatu wassalamu alayki ya Rasulallah.
As-salatu wassalamu alayki ya Rasulallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah.
As-salatu wassalamu alayki ya Nabiyallah.
As-salatu wassalamu alayki ya Nabiyallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah.
Sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Viewers of Madani Channel, welcome back to YOLO. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Today we've got a very packed program for you. Some very interesting facts, some very interesting principles to learn. We're going to start with the arrival of that amazing day that we repeat every day in Salah, Yawmiddin, the day of judgment. But before we go there, we're going to start with a blessing of Durood Pak. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam has stated that the one who recites salat upon me 50 times a day, I will shake hands with him on the day of judgment. What an amazing opportunity that will be. Can you imagine that on the day of judgment, everybody is in great strife and great difficulty, terrified by the circumstances they're in, and by the day of judgment and accountability? How fortunate will that person be who has the opportunity of shaking hands with the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It will take away all his worries of that very terrifying day. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And let me welcome my special guest today. We've got our beautiful Shiraz Bhai, who as ever is going to enlighten us with his Madani pearls. Shiraz Bhai, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to YOLO.
Thank you.
Everything okay? You well?
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. And my second guest today is a surprise guest. Some of the brothers were busy today, but alhamdulillah, it's worked out beautifully because we've got a guest of honor. We've got our beloved Hafiz Sahib who's joining us today. Hafiz Sahib, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair for taking the time out. Hafiz Sahib, MashaAllah, is working very hard behind the scenes. He's doing online courses. I know that every morning, MashaAllah, he does his Quran Pak and everything else. So he's working very hard. So thank you for taking the time out. I know it's not easy sometimes.
Ameen, alhamdulillah.
May Allah reward you for that. Now, before we move into our first segment, I'm going to give you a very important invitation. In the second part of our program, where we discuss the social issue, we've got a topic today which affects all of us, and all of us will have to go through it. It's a very difficult time. It's a very, very difficult and very, very demanding time. But if you're prepared for that, then inshallah Allah Azza wa Jal, by the blessings of His beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, will make it easy for us. And that is dealing with parents who pass away from this world. A lot of brothers don't know how to deal with that. Inshallah, in our social issue segment, we will deal with that. So stay tuned. But let me move to my first segment. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Remember the hereafter, and you will remember why you are here and what you are after.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Last week we had some beautiful Madani pearls from our beloved Shiraz Bhai in relation to the horn that will be blown on the day of judgment. Now, the announcement, when first time it's blown, we learned that how everything will be destroyed, everything will perish, and nothing will be left. This is a day when it's blown, the people who are covering the earth will be the enemies of Allah, will be disbelievers and will be lost in idol worship. Now, once the horn is blown, then there will come a time when everybody is gone, and then the kingdom and the dominion will be Allah Azza wa Jalla. And the creator of the heavens and the earth will announce, where are the tyrants today? Where are the oppressors? Where are the arrogant ones? And no reply will come. Why? Because the King of Kings is Allah Azza wa Jalla. Now, then we started very briefly, you remember, at the end of the last episode. I asked Shiraz Bhai, once this has happened, and then the horn is blown for the second time, Shiraz Bhai told us that the angels will gradually come back to life. And then after they have done, the horn will be blown for the third time. And then he was about to tell us what's going to happen next. And I stopped him and I said, let's leave it there, because it's very interesting. I want to know, but inshallah, I will find out, and so will the viewers of Madani Channel when we come back next week. So I'm going to take it from there. So Shiraz Bhai, last week we left it about there. The horn is blown. I remember very vividly, very beautifully kind of described how, on the blowing of the horn, the ruhs, the spirits, the souls will leave the bodies, and then the people on the earth who had perished, and the earth will be rolled up and a new kind of land, if I can call it, that will be created. What happens next?
So the horn of resurrection, nafkhatul ba'ath, when that is blown, so like a few different things will happen. Medan, the mahshar, the plains of resurrection will be reformed. Remember, in the first one, everything ceases, everything finishes. In the first blowing of the horn, everything eventually ceases. So now, when Allah resurrects everything, what will happen is this plain of resurrection, a land which will be so flat, like it's a completely flat, round land, that there will be no imperfections in the land.
Allah.
And from one side you could see the other side clearly. Even though it's a vast land, remember, from the beginning of civilization up until the end, entire jinn and ins will be on this land. So that is, a large number of people on this one land. Now this will be a flat land. Scholars have mentioned that it will be made out of copper. However, on that day, the sun and the moon, the Quran says, the Hadith says, they will be tied together, and the sun will not have any light anymore. The light of the sun will extinguish.
Allah.
And
it's funny because that's what scientists say as well. The sun will effectively burn itself out. And look at how much, what amazes me, Shiraz Bhai, is this. That, we read about the Day of Judgment, so we think it's going to be a day that is going to arrive, and these are the few signs. There is so much, as we've discussed in the last episodes, leading up to the Day of Judgment. And then even the blowing of the horn is a very, very difficult matter, and it's very complicated, and there is a lot happening there. And then after that, the resurrection itself, each one of these events is so magnificent and so detailed. And then the other thing that's absolutely amazing is the amount of description that our Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us.
yeah, actually, he's pinpointed everything.
Subhanallah.
The detail of those hadiths, talking about that, just the resurrection itself, if you've gone into the matter, Allah says that we are able to even, in the ayat of Surah Al-Qiyamah, He says that you think we cannot resurrect your bones. However, we are able to bring back your very fingertips. Now, it's not even just fingertips though, it's the fingerprint of humans, of, the hoof of a donkey. They are unidentical as well, so they all have their unique hoof print. The same way the feet of a bird, they have their own unique footprint. So Allah can bring every single back to their identical self that they were. So going into that, it's just amazing how the Prophet ﷺ has told us this. And even the events coming up to where we are now, each and every one, the way it's happened in that sequence that the Prophet ﷺ
I'm just dwelling on that for a second though. 1460 years ago, let's be straight, nobody knew that each individual had its individual characteristics and marks as a person. And nobody knew fingerprints existed in the form they do, and nobody knew that fingerprints could be used as a method of identification. Wherever you go, fingerprints can be used as a method of identification. I was reading an article, very interesting, Hafsa. There are people in the world who are actually very, very few, but who have a special, can you call it a genetic deformity, where they don't have fingerprints. And for them to travel, very few, For them to travel anywhere, it's very difficult. They can't get passports, they can't get driving licenses. And there was quite a lengthy article that I was reading about this. And this is the beauty of the Qudrat, the creation of Allah. Allah does everything and then says, well, like, if I want to change it, I can change it, exceptions. Now, nobody knew at that time how important the tips of the fingers would be. And yet, what does the glorious Quran say? Allah says, I can put together the very tips of your fingers. The glorious Quran tells us in relation to the fingertips. I mean, the Surah Mubarakah in itself, Surah Qiyamah, it's such a beautiful surah. And then when you look at the actual wording of it, when you listen to it, it really brings that awe and that fear into your heart. I mean, I don't want to put him on the spot, but I've got the translation in front of me. And if you want to, I wanted to kind of give the viewers of Madani Channel an insight, say the first few ayats, into the amazing translation. But when it's done with the actual Arabic as well, it really, really brings that awe and that understanding of this amazing day. Do you have some?
Are we doing verse by verse?
Verse by verse.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا أقسم بيوم القيامة
I swear by the day of resurrection.
ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة
And I swear by the excessively self-blaming soul of the pious believer.
أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه
Does mankind assume that we will never gather his bones?
بلى قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه
Why not? We are even able to put together the tips of his fingers in perfect order.
بل يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه
Rather, mankind desires to commit evil by denying the day of judgment which is in front of him.
يسأل أيان يوم القيامة
He, man, asks, when will be the day of resurrection?
فإذا برق البصر
Then the day when the eyes are dazed,
وخسف القمر
and the moon will be eclipsed,
وجمع الشمس والقمر
and the sun and the moon will be put together.
يقول الإنسان يومئذ أين المفر
On that day, mankind will say, where is the place of escape? Allahu Akbar. Amazing. I mean, this Surah Mubarakah really gives you an insight into there. And we had the thing that you mentioned in relation to the tips of the fingers, but much more than that as well. Allahu Akbar. It really sets up. And this is just one little taster. If one looks at the glorious Quran, there are many, many Surah Mubarakahs where Allah Azza wa Jal describes the events of Qiyamah.
Yeah, there is like, especially in the last para, I think it's Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas, he says that if someone wants the full description of Qiyamah, look at, I think it's the 4th and 5th surah in the last para, look at them, it's 3 or 4 surahs, and that'll give you the full description of the Judgment Day, and basically the outline of Judgment, what's going to occur. And it's in front of us.
You see, this is important because, a lot of people, they talk about Judgment Day, but actually this is one of the fundamental beliefs that we must have as Muslims, believing in the Day of Judgment. I mean, every time we stand in Salah, we have to declare and talk about the Day of Judgment. Yawm al-Qiyamah.
Surah Fatiha, for example, Maliki Yawmiddin.
Maliki Yawmiddin.
It comes in, I think we read Surah Fatiha, just in namaz, we read it 20 times a day minimum. So we mention this 20 times a day, Yawma Yaqumul Hisab,
Allah.
Rabbi Jani. So we start our prayer with it, and then we end our prayer with it.
Allah.
So, I mean, we're talking, and that's 40 times minimum, if, exclude the Sunnah and Nawafil.
SubhanAllah, you made me think about it different, because obviously we start with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So after praising Allah Azza wa Jal, the first thing we say is Maliki Yawmiddin. And then when we finish with Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allahu Akbar. Never thought about it that way.
So even like that, so from start to end, Fajr namaz, if that's when, when you actually contemplate of the namaz and you know what you're reading, it sets your day out for you. You know what to do today. you've started off talking about Qiyamah, the final, you've ended the Salah with Qiyamah, so it's reminding you completely that what you're doing in between is preparation for Qiyamah and what you're sending forward for that. Rumbai, we were talking, Judgment Day. One thing that's, you have to understand is, the laws of the world is that everything descends to the floor.
We've got gravity, we've got the laws of motion, we've got the laws of physics.
Yeah, but on the Day of Judgment, it's going to be slightly different. So now the sun, remember, the sun will be pitch black, but the heat will still be coming out. It will be black, but the heat will still be coming out. There'll be no light, therefore, except the light that Allah Azza wa Jalla blesses people with. Allah. The light of His Arsh. So when the Nafkhatul Ba'as is taken place, the third and final blow of the trumpet, those people, for example, who are passed away intoxicated, they will resurrect intoxicated.
Allah.
They will be in that same halat. Those people who passed away, performing sajda, for example, they will be resurrected in that same.
Those people who were fortunate to pass away during Hajj.
Hajj season.
Allahu Akbar.
Imagine that, getting up, reading the talbiyah.
Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, Allahu Akbar. How amazing are those people? Yeah, on the Day of Judgment, all this is happening around you, and they rise from their graves reading Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Oh, subhanallah.
The pious people who pass away, for them to be resurrected and the final horn being blown, because they were in a nice, peaceful sleep.
I suppose their graves were regarded as paradise.
Because the angel said to them, Nam ka nawmatil urus, sleep like a man sleeps, the groom sleeps on his honeymoon period. Relax, no fear in the world. La khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahsanun, no fear, no grief for them. So he's resting peacefully, and now this horn has blown. And he will get up saying, who's woke me up from this beautiful sleep?
Allahu Akbar.
And now the the person who died in a bad situation, for him, he's being punished in the grave. And now this horn has been blown. And for him is Ya waylana man ba'athana min marqadina, that who's woke me up from this marqad, this grave, i.e. he was being punished, and now he's like, is there more punishment after this? Because that's how crazy that punishment is in the grave. He was there alone, and now he's like, is there more punishment after this? And then the angels will reply that هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلُونَ, that this is what the Rahman promised, the most merciful promise, and the messengers also confirm this.
So this is reject the lads who were out with your drugs and everything else, and they died in that sort of state. So they're being punished in the grave, and yet they're thinking maybe this is it. And when they wake up that day, they realize that's nothing compared to what is about to come. Allahu Akbar.
The ayat that Hafiz Rifaqat said, Bal yuridul insanu li yafjura amama. One of the explanations of that verse is that insan, a Muslim believing person, insan wants to do fujur now, sins now, knowing that Judgment Day is tomorrow, and he's given himself this excuse that, later on I'll do tawbah.
Allah.
And this, it's kind of, this equation he's put in his head, this formula that I'll do tawbah when I'm 60 or 70, when I've made it. He's carried on in this, this way of life, mentality, this thinking, and death has overtook him and put him in his grave. So he will wake up like, wow, is there more punishment after this? So this is like the resurrection. Those people who, for example, a shark has ate them in the oceans after being drowned, or who fell from like a plane accident, and you don't find their body parts, many of their limbs and organs go missing. Even them, Allah Azza wa Jalla, from the corners of the earth, wherever their atoms or molecules of their body part, whichever machli ate it, and whichever machli ate that, whichever fish ate that, and
the chain,
that entire chain, Allah Azza wa Jalla will take his body part out from all over the planet and put them back together, compile them back together the way they were originally. They will all come back together, reform themselves, and literally now there will be three types of people. Some will be walking on that day. Some, like the way a snake slithers. they will be tied from their necks and their feet with chains, and angels will drag them across that copper surface.
Allah.
These were the bad people. Some will have to walk on that surface on that day, and then the believing good muttaqeen person on that day, they will be going towards the most merciful Allah Azza wa Jalla on a mountain, on a horse, on a buraq basically. They will have their buraq.
I just wanted to bring you back to something you said, because there's a hadith Mubarakah that I came across that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, and you will be resurrected the way you die. So basically those people who died committing sins, say for example there are brothers out there who are lost in kind of women and all that, yeah, if they die in this state without repenting, on the day of judgment they will rise in that impurity. Druggies, you know, your smackheads, and they think at the moment they're cool and everything else, and you've got the weed smokers and everything else, and they think that the joint is everything. On the day of judgment they will rise intoxicated in that sort of state.
Arumbai, you know what, you're talking about this, you know, once I gave ghusl to a person, and after I think it was a few days after even being in the mortuary, he still smelled of alcohol.
Allah.
The intoxicant. So if you look at the, you know, the details of all these minor, well, what we see as minor, small things, there is a lot ahead of us that we don't think about. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, that person who was being punished in his grave because he didn't save himself from drops of urine, he wasn't punished for a big thing that he done. And what the scholars have mentioned, that big thing meaning that everyday person doesn't seem this as a big sin, but it is a big sin. You know, we think, you know, now leaving namaz, drinking alcohol, na mahram, you know, that way of life, haram, muni, we see it as a everyday thing now.
It becomes acceptable. It's almost the shaitan. Gradually, he introduces it to us and we become immune to it. We think, well, so I had one brother who kept saying, you know, yeah, in this day and age, it's very difficult to earn halal, and so, you know, it's very difficult. And then later on, I find out that that brother is kind of not doing the right thing. And I think what he's done is, what the shaitan's very cleverly done, is convinced him. I think he had a very good earnings, he had a good job, but he was looking at the millionaires, you see, and he was trying. And what the shaitan's done is deceived him into that. A lot of our youngsters who hopefully inshallah are listening as well, they plan nights out, don't they? They plan nights out. Or you know, it's the 25th we'll go out, it's the 26th we'll go out, it's the New Year's Eve we'll go out. A few years ago, there was young lads like this, Muslims, went out, and like you said, they had a drink and everything else, and then they had a fight between two gangs, and somebody got stabbed. Where he got stabbed was a very, not a very good street, if I can say that, yeah. There were a lot of loose people on there. Anyway, he gets stabbed, he dies there in where all these pubs and clubs are. And with all the music, nobody's going to stop the music if somebody's dying on the pavement. So all this music and all this filth is there, and he dies in between that. And you know, it brings back memories, because we did the ghusl. I was with, I think Khalid Bhai was with me at the time. And it was shocking because, you know, these people had plans, this brother had plans. Everything's there. On the day of judgment, he's going to wake up in that state. You know, this is what Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has told us. And so,
you know, having said that, Harun Bhai, you know, many viewers would be thinking that, look, I know someone who's passed away in that state, but Allah will forgive him. We also have that thing in our mind as well, that when we pass away, Allah will just forgive us. But that is not the case, you know, in all cases. Some people have that in their mind, that okay, he's drinking, Allah would have forgive him. You know, we believe Allah is the most merciful, but then it's not just the drinking. Sometimes people go into committing kufr, so on and so forth. You know, that lifestyle leads you to so much deep, dark alleyways where you can't come off.
But Shazmi, you know better than me that the time for repentance, Hafizab, is, you know, when you're in this life. Say if you're not in this life, you've gone, your time for repentance has passed. Yes, Allah Azza wa Jalla is the most merciful, but Allah Azza wa Jalla gave you the opportunity in this world to do that. I mean, you know, what do you say, Hafizab, to brothers who say, well, I'm young, yeah, you know, I've got to live the life. YOLO, you only live once. What do you say?
The thing is, like, we mentioned this before as well, that many times if you go to the graveyard, majority of the graves, you know, in this past whole year, we've seen so many youngsters that have passed away. We had just a couple of months ago, we had two young lads, you know, speeding, and they crashed and they died. It happens nearly every single month. You'll see these kind of things, and you tell these guys off. Even a few days ago, a youngster got burnt. Probably more than 40% burns. Again, chilling out with his mates, family worried at home, and these things keep repeating themselves, even though we know what the consequences will be.
If every day I protect my 5 prayers, if every day, if I get up at Fajr time or whatever time I get during the day, I read the glorious Quran, if every day I'm nice to my parents, I'm nice to my brothers and sisters, if every day I eat halal, then the day I die, the chances are I will have prayed my Fajr, the chances are I will have protected my Salah, the chances are that I will have served my parents, the chances are that I will have read the Quran, if that's my daily routine.
Alhamdulillah.
It's guaranteed, isn't it? So it comes back to the way you die is the way you lived. And say, for example, somebody's read the Quran, read the namaz and done everything else, that's the way they'll be resurrected. I mean, Hazrat Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was martyred when he was reading the glorious Quran. So on the day of judgment, when he rises, not only was he a magnificent companion of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also he died, left this world reading the glorious Quran.
Sometimes you hear stories where youngsters they get fooled into that, like they're thinking that it's going to happen to me as well. We had a young lad, and he was one of the jack the lads on street, with drugs and all that, but he did tawbah. And his tawbah was accepted in such a manner that when the day he did tawbah, he says, that's it lads, I'm not going to be with you guys. So he went to the masjid, went home, had ghusl, went to the masjid. He died in sajda in the masjid.
Allah.
So that proves to you that when you do tawbah in the court of Allah, this is how Allah Ta'ala will repay you.
How merciful Allah is. There was a very interesting story about a Buzurg rahmatullah alayhi, and he was in the marketplace and he was sat there crying, and somebody came to him and he said, why are you sat here crying? And he said, well, I'm trying to invite the people towards good and the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal is merciful, and His mercy is calling out to the people. And yet these people are ignoring me and they're rebuking me and nobody will listen to me. I'm saying, come to the masjid, come to read namaz, come to read the glorious Quran. The mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal is calling, and they're lost in the world. They're lost in their women, and they're lost in their money, and they're lost in all this worldly stuff. And so he walked past, and a few days later he sees the same Buzurg rahmatullah sat in the graveyard, and he's crying again.
Allah.
And he says, what are you doing? You sat here crying now. Why are you crying today? He said, well, today I was asking Allah Azza wa Jal to show His mercy to these people because they've left the world. And today Allah Azza wa Jal was saying, no, they've missed their opportunity now.
Allah.
So, okay, people, everybody, the entire creation of Allah Azza wa Jal will be raised. It will be a Maidan, it will be a plains, like the plains of Arafat, but many, many times bigger. Billions and billions and billions of people on the plains of resurrection, all of them coming out of their graves, some of them, like you said, on beautiful buraqs and making their way there, and some of them crawling,
yeah, angels are dragging them.
Angels are dragging them, and they come to the court. Now what happens next?
فَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ. Then the final horn will be blown, and they will all hasten towards their Lord. They will all hasten towards their Lord. So from wherever they are, in one narration is mentioned that on these plains of resurrection there will be fire which will slowly gather all the people into the center of the plain. And then Adam alayhi salam. So just before this, we missed something. Now the Prophet ﷺ, remember, he will be resurrected between two Siddiqeen, Isa alayhi salam.
Yeah, that was one of the things. Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me, because okay, everybody's going to be resurrected, but who's going to be resurrected first?
The Prophet ﷺ will be resurrected first. He will come out of his grave. Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Siddiq Akbar, Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab, then Jannatul Baqi. And it's mentioned that the specific hadith that Hazrat, now everyone, the Prophet ﷺ says that on the day of judgment everyone will be naked. So Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa says that Ya Rasulullah ﷺ will not feel shy looking at another. And he says on that day that would be the last thing on your mind.
Such a terrifying event.
Being shy over something like this, that would be the last thing on your mind. So the Prophets ﷺ, they will take their shrouds off, and they will be given a heavenly garment to wear. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam will be the first Prophet to wear his garment. So Reading the hadith, it seems as if the Anbiya alayhimus salam, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam first, and then the level of their status in that same sequence, they will be resurrected, and then the angels, besides their tomb or wherever they are blessed to be buried, or whichever part of the land they have blessed, when they come out of the grave, the angel will give them and clothe them with a heavenly garment, and then the rest of them in that sequence will resurrect, and together the Muslims will enter into the plains of resurrection. The kuffar or the disbelievers, the non-Muslims, the people who don't fisk sins, they will be dragged into the
enemies of Allah.
Yeah, they'll be tied in shackles, dragged into the plains.
I just want to mention one thing here. When a couple of years ago, when the stampede happened in Armina, a lot of people, thousands of people died, and those people who survived, they were interviewed and they said, how did you feel? And nearly every one of them said that it felt like the Day of Judgment. We were literally naked, but we did not worry about anyone else looking at our body,
Allah,
because we were so, yeah. So that's how I think, when Shirazbhai was mentioning.
It's a very terrifying day.
So then, I think that one of the first announcements to be made is where Allah Azza wa Jalla will command Adam alayhi salam. Remember, he's the father of all of mankind. He will command him that separate the Jannatis from the Jahannamis. And he will ask that how many from how many? This will be the question. Allah. How many from how many? And then the reply will be, from every 1,000, one is a Jannati. And then after that, these Muslims will be then segregated. Some will be going towards the Arsh of Allah, some will be into different, depending on their status, they will go. And then the ones that are going towards Jahannam is a separate topic, what happens to them.
So viewers of Madani Channel, we had a very beautiful journey, and Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we learned that the way we'll be resurrected is the way that we lived our life. If we lived a life of piety and taqwa and obedience of Allah Azza wa Jal, we will rise very beautifully. As Shirazbhai said, very graceful rising from the grave, thinking, who's woken me up from my beautiful sleep? Because your grave would have been a garden of paradise. Inshallah, we're going to continue from there. So where Shirazbhai has left us is that we're all gathered on the plains of resurrection, the pious people on their beautiful buraqs, the great Anbiya Ikram, the great messengers of Allah with their beautiful clothes, and then the rest of the people, may Allah not make us of those in dire straits on copper, drowning in their own sweat. And inshallah, we will continue from there next week. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Remember the hereafter, and you will remember why you are here and what you are after.
Now, in our social issue for the last few weeks, we went through how the parents look after the children, how they spend their days and nights worrying about them. Then we dealt with teenagers and the relationship between teenagers and their children, and how our youngsters don't appreciate this and they think that they're 10 men when they're at that age. And then how to deal with elderly parents. And mashallah, very beautifully, Shirazbhai, last week, I came with a certain thought. And mashallah, this is the beauty of the scholars of the deen of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He very beautifully took us through that amazing ayah mubarakah of the glorious Quran, which broke down exactly the problem I was trying to identify, but not only broke it down, I kind of identified it as well, but this is the beauty and the ijaz of the Quran. It gave us the solution as well. And so today I wanted to cover one chapter which we're all going to go through. One chapter which is very difficult and very, very kind of distressing, and in some cases terrifying as well. But we're all going to have to go through this. We're all going to have to go through the fact that our parents one day will leave this world. They will depart. And so dealing with them at that final moments, that they have, dealing with them, once they've left this world, doing the ghusl, dealing with all the affairs, putting them in the graves, that's what I wanted to deal with today. And Shirazbhai, the reason I wanted to deal with it is this. We regularly try and help out when it comes to ghusl mayyit, and what I often find is that people are completely lost. You go to, they ring you up and say, my dad's just passed away, and you go in there, and the father is just lying there, hands by his side, mouth open, eyes wide open. They don't know what to do. And they stood around talking. And you're thinking, Ya Allah, they don't even realize what is happening. So today I wanted to kind of work through that. So say, for example, let's start from here. You know that your parents are about to pass away. First of all, at that time, what do you do? What can the children do when they gather around? Because a lot of people, they gather around and then they take turns and everything else, but they stand there and they do nothing. And there's a new trend as well. And I don't say it's wrong, but instead of me sitting there and reading the Quran, reading Surah Yasin Sharif, doing the zikr of Allah Azza wa Jalla, reading the Kalma Sharif, I get my phone out, I play tilawat, I leave it there, and I go outside chatting to my mates. So I wanted you to deal with that today.
Remember, it reminds me, there was three of them. Yeah? They went on a drive and hit a lorry. Two of them, because they were at the front, smashed into the back of the lorry and went flying out, in the motorway and laying there ready to die. And the guy in the back, he was a Hafiz, but he was like, chilled out. He's gone. And imagine having such a good friend. He sat there, he just didn't do anything else. He just read Surah Yasin to both of them. So in the middle of the motorway, his friends are literally on, let's say, last few minutes left, and didn't bother ringing anyone, just at that moment in time, because it was the last few minutes, he just sat there reading Surah Yasin. Then later on, he wasn't even bothered if there's more cars coming, he just put his hazards on, read Surah Yasin. This is the most valuable thing for them at that point. He wasn't bothered if another car comes and collides. Because at that point, them 2 minutes of his are the most important.
That was the greatest gift he could have given them. He could have been running about and shouting and screaming.
And that was just a friend. Someone doing that for you, having such a good friend at that time in that situation, which we don't think about. Our good friend is that person who supplies us, and that person who sticks up for us and probably lends us some money is our good friend. This is actually a good friend. Alright, they were going out, it was someone's birthday or something, but this, someone's birthday, this happened.
But I like the phrase you use, we're not prepared, because basically if we think about this, say now, the whole point of bringing this topic in today, we discussed it earlier, was that people get the opportunity to think about, what am I going to do if my mother or my father or one member of my family is about to die? If I think about it now, at least I'll be prepared for it. And a lot of people, because they're not prepared for it, they lose their mind, don't they? I've seen people say, what's happening? They come out with kufriya kalimat. Why is Allah Azza wa Jal doing this? Astaghfirullah al-azim wa atubu ilayh. They need to make sure that they're prepared before. And what happens is, because they're lost in the world, they've never thought about it. And these words could take them out of the fold of Islam.
Yeah, even like saying, why did you take him? You should have took me.
Astaghfirullah.
There's things like that. There's different intentions for a person to say that whenever musibat reaches them, that's when they say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. However, when a musibat does reach us, we forget them words, we end up doing kufr.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Those, the uneducated, or the ones that are away from the practices and morals of Islam, they end up doing kufr.
And I know I keep labouring this, but it's the way you live your life, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you get up and you pray your namaz and you make dua in the court of Allah Azza wa Jalla and everything else, at a time like that, Allah Azza wa Jalla will bless you with the peace and tranquility, and you'll know naturally what to do and how to react. But if you've spent your nights clubbing, if you've spent your nights with the boys, smoking away, yeah, and then all of a sudden you think when somebody passes away, I'll be able to deal with it. It doesn't take 10 minutes, it doesn't take bench pressing 200 in the gym, it takes a mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah, so even Harumbai, so look, if a person's parents, the initial question was, what do you do when someone's, he's in his last, let's say, week or two weeks. At that point, a person, in them stages, he should take 2-3 weeks of work straight away. We don't. Our parents, family members, the doctors have told them, right, he's got a month left, and we just carry on.
That's a beautiful point, though.
We should actually take off 2-3 weeks of work, even though only Allah knows when he will pass away. But every moment with your parents is a special moment. and they've nurtured you, they brought you up all that way. You should give them your full attention.
SubhanAllah, that's a beautiful Madani pearl. Beautiful.
Leave everything.
That opportunity, people regret. You know, they think afterwards, you know, when you sat with them, they say, gosh, I had more time to spend with them. I recently had a friend of mine and a brother of mine, his father passed away, but for the last 2 years, his father's been ill. But Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah Ta'ala bless him, day and night, he was by his father's side. Day and night, whether it's in hospital, at home, in the middle of the night, he was there. And he was very upset. But one thing I said to him is, look, Allah Ta'ala has given you the opportunity to do their khidmat, and at least you've been able enough to do that. And that's a great blessing.
You know, especially in that, that last period of their life, you could imagine for them, they know they're passing away as well, Haroon Bhai. They know that they are feeling an emotion as well, and for you to just leave them alone in a room, laying down, that's going to make them pass away even faster. So you need to give them more time, be around them, make them happy, even though they can't talk, can't move, they're probably even unconscious, just be with them. The Quran, remember we mentioned the tilawat, doing it live, the barakat coming from that. Giving charity in their name at that point. All these, good deeds, these practices we generally do specifically. For him, that will be a coolness for him. You might see something else for you in your mind. You're planning, I need to get a graveyard plot. I need to get the death certificates ready. I need to get the coroner's signature. I need all these things. This, who's going to do the ghusl? All this kind of stuff's going through your mind. But at that point, just leave it. And just concentrate on he's your father or your mother.
But even those are the fortunate ones. This is what I'm kind of stressed about, because a lot of the time, the poor parents have been through great difficulty. It wasn't an easy life, working 12 hours, 14 hours, bichari mum, with language problems, still trying to get the kids to, give them upbringing. And when we were young, when we were ill, they both used to stay up all night and everything else. Now that it's this, the parents are in their final time, you've given us one beautiful Madani pearl, spend time with them. And then when you're around them, talk about good things, don't stress them out and all that. You were saying, coroner and this and that. Most of the kids don't know. Yeah, I'm talking about ghusl here, and they're saying they're stood outside with their mate. Well, there was one a person who passed away a few years ago. And I remember that the brothers who were doing the ghusl normally were out of time on a Madani kafla or whatever. And and Imam Sahib from that particular masjid was away as well. And they had to wait an hour and a half to 2 hours for a brother to come from Manchester to come and do ghusl, because nobody within the family, and the sons and everybody else, nobody knew how to do ghusl. And nobody dare open the bag that had come from the hospital. Now, how bad is that?
That's, it's a common problem. It's a common thing.
This is it.
Like even in Rush Jail, we have, at this point, we have the funeral course. And even though this is not just, like namaz is a personal ibadat, it's a personal thing. Fasting is a personal thing. So doing a course regarding fasting or prayer is in a different category to a funeral and a ghusl course, because you're learning something that's not just an Islamic tradition, it's something that you're going to have to do.
You're going to have to do.
I mean, if your father or even your child, one of the two passes away, you're in one stage of your life, you will be wanting to perform it. Those...
Well, how difficult is it? Sorry, I'm cutting you off, but say for example, and it's all mentally up here, we're not prepared and we're not bothered. This is what kind of stresses me even more. How difficult is it? It's not rocket science that when your elderly parents are in a state where they're about to leave from this world, you talk to them in a beautiful way, you go and do their khidmat. The amount of du'as they give you, there's no substitute for that. And you make life easier for them. You sit down, you spend time with them, you read Surah Yasin, you take turns. Okay, people get tired if they're in hospital or they're at home. You take turns, you make a rota for everything else, make a rota, spend time. I remember a friend of mine, his mother was terminally ill. May Allah raise their ranks in Jannah. And the brothers sat down and they said, right, mum's in hospital and they don't like being alone. And they were suffering from cancer. And they said, don't like being alone. So the entire family got together, and it was COVID era, and the entire family got together and they made a schedule where people would take shifts 24/7, yeah, and for the 3-4 months that the Buzurg were in hospital, one of the sons, one of the daughters was always there with them, reading something, talking to them, making their life easier. And I thought, amazing. You can never repay a mother for the amount of effort. And you mentioned the hadith in Barak, was it last week, in relation to the pains of labour. But at least they've done something to make it easier for them.
Yeah.
And yet, what happens if you've got poor mothers who are dying on their deathbed and the son's out chilling with his mates, the daughter's out, speaking to her friends? It just breaks your heart.
I think if you look at it, if someone's passed away, you would want to be the one, washing. Harun Bhai, I'll give you a good example. We are more devoted to our cars than our parents. In one sense, if you look at it, when we wash our cars on a weekend, nice sunny weekend, we wash our car, we polish it, we dry it up, we put the tire shine on it, whatever it is. But that's your car. And now your father's passed away, for example. Do you not want to wash him to the best of your ability? If someone else does it, he's going to wash him, he's going to do the fars. But you, because of the love you have for your father, the same way you have the love for the car and you want every single speck of dirt off it, that's what you should be feeling towards your father, but 10 times more, because he's your father. So washing him, giving him his final ghusl, his final one, that's it. After this, the shroud is on, he's going to get buried. Next time you see him is on the Day of Judgment. Wouldn't you want to be the one that's giving him his final ghusl? And I think it's all about the love you have for your parents. And does that love entice you towards giving that ghusl? Or are you just, because some people, they're just scared of looking at a corpse, looking at a mayyit. They just don't like the idea. That stay away from the mortuary.
Why do they stay away from the mayyit's money as well?
The
there was a Buzurg, they were doing a bayan, and they said that I was invited to do the ghusl of a millionaire who died. And when, this is in Pakistan, and when the mayyit was there, somebody came with scissors to cut a jumper. And he had a really expensive jumper on it. It was from the UK, yeah? And he said, I said to him, stop, I'll be able to get this off without giving him any taklif, so I'll take it off without any troubling him. So he says, I took the jumper off, I put it to one side, we did the ghusl, and afterwards I said to the son, one of the sons, I said, look, keep this jumper. Your father had it on when he died, and keep it as a nishani of your father, and sometimes you can wear it as well and it will remind you of your father. And the son said, I'm not going to wear that, it's a dead man's jumper. And he said, I was shocked. He goes, this isn't a dead man. Aaj body hogi, this is your father. This is the one who taught you everything. This is the one who brought you up. And it's that mentality. So Shazbi, just for the viewers of Madani Channel then, take time off. If your parents are terminally ill or they're in that time, take time off. If you can't take time off, when you come home, spend maximum time, because this is a great blessing of Allah Azza wa Jal, which you will never get again. You can buy anything, but you cannot replace your parents. Now, next, if they're in their final times, sit with them, make a rota, recite Kalma Sharif, recite Surah Yasin Sharif, etc. Now, at that final time, the Buzurgani Deen say that in the room, put some scent, fragrance as well in the room as well. And sometimes it's natural that, when a person's in the last throes of death, they may have difficulty controlling their bowels, etc. Be prepared for that, because, don't shy away from it. Then, when they pass away, immediately, what we've learned is that you tie the mouth back.
Yeah. So
if you take us through that, tying the hands and making sure everything's right.
So basically what you want, because when the bones and the muscles cool down, they just become stiff.
Yeah.
When they become stiff, if the mouth is left open and the eyes are left open, it just haunts a person when they look at the dead body with the eyes open and the mouth open. So traditionally we tie a piece of cloth around the circumference of his head to keep his jaw closed as much as we can without giving them any sort of taklif.
And this is in a way a respect for the dead person as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're putting him in a shape where they'll go in a respectful way.
And his eyes as well, and then his feet, because you don't want them lurking towards the left and right. So even his two toes, tie them up so their feet are straight as well. And then the arms, the best thing is to put them in, qiyam position.
Subhanallah.
Like they are in qiyam. Once someone's passed away and then the final breaths have took place, what we should also do, if we've realized it is the final moments now, we should read the kalima ourselves in a nice tone, not shouting, not scaring the dying person. We should read the kalima ourselves in an audible tone, and by us reading it, it should be enticing him towards reading it. But if he does not read it, don't force him to read it. Reason being because he might say, no, I can't read, or whatever he says.
At that time it's difficult, isn't it? You're going through the throes of that. You've got the shaitan constantly kind of whispering and constantly attacking you at that time, and he may become frustrated. I'm just going to come back to that. So at the time that when somebody's in that last throes, read Surah Yasin Sharif, stay around and keep reciting the kalma, don't ask them to. Now I did mention earlier that don't rely upon this. It's not a bad thing. In the background when you play. But the point I was making was this: don't just put your parents in a hospital bed or at home in a room and play this and never go to see them. Yes, if you're spending maximum time with them, if you've got to go out for something, leave the tilawat of the Quran running in the background, or leave a Nate Pak, Durood al-Salam in the background. That's beautiful. It will help them relax. And say, if they pass away while you're away, at least they've passed away to the sound of the glorious Quran, to the Nate Pak, Durood Pak upon Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's a beautiful way of doing it. They've left this world. You've tied their hands and feet. Now a lot of people I've seen myself, because we get called out and you go there and everybody's downstairs and they're all crying and they're all upset, and they've left the person upstairs in a bedroom, for example. I went to one house and everybody's downstairs and everybody's running around trying to arrange this and arrange that, or bande sankanan and dizam karo this and I says, where is uncle? He says, oh, he's upstairs in the bedroom, and they close the door, nobody with him. Nobody's reading. They think that once the person's passed away, that's it, that's the end, yeah? Halanke, in that time, it's the most frightening
it
time.
seems as if it's a relief for them.
Astaghfirullah.
It does, doesn't it, though? He's passed away.
It is, you're right.
And for them, it would be a relief if he's passed away reading the kalima. And you've sent him off in a very good way. He, his his final hour, he was reading the Quran, or he was doing tilawat, or he was doing sajda and he passed away. Then 100% is a relief.
Passed away in Medina.
Passed away in Medina. Then you wouldn't even cry, you'd smile.
No, you'd smile.
And then obviously later on when you miss him, that's when you'd probably cry. But at that point you'd be happy that he died in sajda.
Just to interrupt you on that note, there was a person who used to regularly clean our mosque, and he was kind of the caretaker of the masjid since we were children, all the way up. And one of the beauties he had was he didn't do it to show anybody. He wasn't bothered. So during the day he'd come in and clean everything, clean the toilets, clean everything, do cooking, whatever. And nobody'd know who'd come in. We knew because we were involved in it, so we thought it must be him, yeah? And he says to each other, I want to go on Umrah. So they say, okay, they arrange a ticket for him going on his own. He gets there, he's in the ihram, he says to the group leader, I'm going to start my tawaf, I've been here before. You're going to bring a group and you're going to teach them everything. I'll see you there. And he was in his third or fourth chakkar of the Holy Kaaba when he fell there and he passed away. And the doctors of Haram came, this was a few years ago, and they said that there's so much nur on this person's face. They don't usually bury in Jannatul Ma'la, but they buried him there. And he was very, very fortunate. Now somebody like that passes away, you go there and you do the ta'ziyat, but nobody's crying, everybody's happy. That's what a way to go. What a way to go. Sorry I interrupted you, but I just remembered that. It's amazing.
Stories like that is like you're happy.
I know them. I knew them.
The best thing for a person, best dua you can make for someone is that pass away in that type of situation.
Allahu Akbar.
But just general death, like he's died on a deathbed, it does become a relief for the people, for the children that can't look after their parents as much as they're supposed to. For them it is a relief. Now, it might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing, but putting that to aside, is your parents at the end of the day. And you'd grieve, no matter what, you'd grieve that that they passed away, and you'd remember all the good moments you've had. And you naturally just forget the bad moments. You remember all the good moments, you have a laugh about it, you carry on. But one thing that I feel as if you'd regret every single time you said no to them,
Allah.
every single time you turned them down. you didn't respect the decision. In the later ages, every time he asked for something and you just didn't, you overlooked it.
It's one of the greatest blessings of Allah.
Yeah, I think, later on that person would regret those moments of his life where he didn't fulfill the rights of his parents. For example, those guys that like a single mother as a child, child grew up as a drug dealer, spends 10 years in prison, he'd regret it a lot as well.
Allah,
those people that have
all
to
the time that he's lost.
One person I know, it's amazing because he actually watches the program as well. His father died whilst he was in prison. And this happened, it's a common story.
It happened to somebody I know a few months ago.
I think you mentioned it on the show
yeah,
as well.
He was, and his mother, their father died when they were quite young, and mother brought them up. And you know how difficult it is in this country for a single mother, and that, I'm talking the same age as us. But this guy, his older brother, mashallah, is doing well, but he just got into the wrong crowd, and he didn't learn. And the biggest thing that's happened is that his mother's passed away while he was in prison. Now, that is something that he will take to the grave. Whereas on the opposite front, Shiraz, this is something amazing. A friend of mine, he's a legal professional, and he said that he was blessed with the vision of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you know what? He said, every day I came home from work, as a advocate, solicitor, barrister, and he said, I come home from work, my father's there, and I straight to get home, I take him to the toilet, I wash them, do everything else, I change their clothes, I feed them and everything else, and then I feed myself, and that was a routine. And because of that routine of looking after my father, I was blessed with the vision of the beloved Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the great opportunity we're missing out on. We've only got about 5 minutes left on this. I just wanted to come back to the fact that you've got the body there. And the point I was making was that as soon as they pass away, that is a frightening time. They are still, the soul's there, the soul's been taken out. Stay with them. Amir al-Sunnah writes in Madani Will, a beautiful pamphlet that you can download for free from dawatislami.net. I would recommend all the viewers of Madani Channel, just go on to dawatislami.net and put Madani Will in it. It's Amir al-Sunnah's beautiful Risala. All Laws of Salah has got a section on it, and it's in there as well. And it says that, when you put me in my grave, Amir al-Sunnah says, don't just go away, stay with me. Now I'm just applying that same analogy at that point. So usually what happens is if somebody passes away at home or in hospital, there is a wait of about an hour or two before the ambulance arrives and they take the person away. During that time, do not leave them alone. If you were there and you had just left this world, you would want your children to stay by your side, carry on reading. And some khush qismat, and I go there and I think, subhanallah, all the families gather around, everybody's got Surah Yasin Sharif and everything else, and they're all reading away. And then eventually we have to kind of ask them to leave the room so we can take the body. Whereas other people, where is he? He's upstairs in the room. And everybody's downstairs doing their own thing, and that's sad. Now, Tika, you've gone to the mortuary, they've brought him back. Very quickly, we've got about 7 minutes left. What I wanted to discuss is this. As a son, how bad is it, Shiraz Bey, if I've got a degree, I'm a professional, I can, calculate all the mathematical equations, I can work out my tax, I can work out all the benefits I'm entitled to, I can do everything else, I earn thousands a year, but my father is lying on a table and I'm waiting for somebody to come and give him ghusl. I'm delegating to other people that you've got to, and this is Dawat Islami for you, we better lay it out bare. I'm waiting for other people to come and wash my father, do the istanja, do everything else. Why have I not prepared for that day?
I think, Rumba, one of the big reasons is we don't know how to do it. I think that's the biggest problem.
But we learn everything else, Yar. Even the most complicated of things. You speak to a youngster on the street these days, and this is sometimes the bitter irony of it. You speak to them and they'll tell you about complicated fiqh masail. They'll tell you about all the complicated masail and they seem to know what they're doing, and yet they can't learn the ghusl of a mayyit. How simple is it?
It's because they can't debate about this stuff. They don't have the knowledge, therefore they don't have the confidence. And obviously ghusl is not difficult, it just, you need to be very cautious and whatnot. But it's one of those... How would that
father feel? I'm interrupting again, sorry. But how would that father feel, if the child he spent, or the children he spent his entire life for, just working for them day and night. Now, the mayyit knows what's happening around them, don't they?
Yeah.
So, if the mayyit sees that my sons are outside having a fag and having a smoke, yeah, and having a chill out with his boys in the car, yeah, and other people, they're waiting for other people, or other people are giving me ghusl, how hurtful is that?
I think, that's when reality will actually, for the dead person, that's when reality will hit him. That, I done all this.
What have I done?
And then, on the day of judgment, the man will run from his brother, father, mother, wife, child. This is when all that comes in as well, that you give them all that, and then what loyalty do they show you in the end?
There's that beautiful couplet, Jandi vari drava banya hai, te hath na lave koi. कित्थे नहीं तेरे कर दे जिन्ना ली पाप तू कमाई इस तरह का शेर है लेकिन basically what he says is for all the people you didn't see halal or haram, you didn't bother about the rights and wrongs, you said I'm feeding my children no matter what, tax fraud, this, that, benefits, everything else, and today those same children are already, splitting. Khalid Bhai was telling me once, he goes, went to a janaza and afterwards went to the puri and said to the son, Bada afsoos hai yaar, your father's passed away. He goes, yaar, my father's only left one house. This is all our parents are worth, what the inheritance is. And this is why we need to wake up. But coming back to the question I had was, once you do the ghusl, so we all need to learn it. What would you say to those youngsters who can't do ghusl?
Come learn it.
Come and learn. But how easy is it to do it?
It's not hard.
It's very simple, isn't it?
Straightforward, yeah.
And is there anything scary about it?
I'll be honest with you, the first 5 minutes, yeah, when you take in, or when you're opening the bag for the dead person, first 5 minutes it takes getting used to. And then once because I remember giving ghusl to a good friend of mine, may Allah, bless his soul. In the beginning I was, a bit, haunted or, a bit nervous. But after giving 3-4 minutes, and then you have to warm them up a bit so they get unstiff. And then you realize, this was the friend you used to shake hands with, you used to hug, you used to have a laugh with. And, it's that same person, it's just his soul's not inside him completely. His soul's somewhere in Jannah.
This connection between the soul and the body breaks, but everything else is still there.
It still lasts. The soul still is semi-connected to the body as well. He's still conscious of what's going on. If you didn't give him ghusl, and he's your friend or he's your father or your brother, for example, you're going to feel that, you missed something out. You didn't fulfill his rights before he left. If you give him ghusl, you're going to feel schoon. That, at least one thing I done properly was before he left, before my father left the dunya, I shrouded him properly, I washed him properly, I put the scent on him properly, I put zamzam on him properly, I put the different, things, the camphor, we put that on properly, I washed him properly, got rid of everything, and we shrouded him in clean shrouds, put perfume on it, we read Surah Yasin around the actual casket, the coffin, we buried him in the best manner that a person could have. That is, letting your father depart in that way, that is, something that you will feel schoon doing that.
Allahu Akbar. I'm going to finish with this. A few years ago, it was something that yaqeen karen ke it really, really made me happy from the inside. My heart was so joyful. I wasn't here, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, I was actually on Umrah at the time, and a Buzurg from our local area passed away. And when it came for ghusl and everything else, their own son stepped up and said, I'm going to do everything, yeah? Now that is normal as well, so some people are fortunate they do all that. He looked after his father was quite elderly, he had Parkinson's. But what was even more amazing was, when the safs are there and the mayyit's there, the son walks up to Imam Sahib and he says, Hazrat agar aap ijazat de, I want to do my father's janazah. Can you imagine how proud that father is? A Hafiz al-Quran, and he moved forward. Hafiz Sahib said yes, because the children should be traditionally, the children should lead the funeral prayers. And he stepped forward and he did the janazah. And honestly, I thought that was, for any father, that was the most proudest moment of their departure from this world, that your own son reads their janazah.
Even Harun Bhai, reading the janazah, doing dua for them, when they're buried, once you put the mitti on top, even then, what happens? We do the azan and then that's it, everyone go home. But the child, the close family relatives, the ones that spend, the friends of that person, they should, stay there for a good, amount of time, as much as they can. I'd say stay there for a good 24 hours.
Well, Amir Sunnah writes in Madani World 12 days. We've got to move on. I think I've only got a minute left now, but viewers of Madani Channel, you have to learn these things because we're all going to go through them. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us children who will move forward, give us ghusl and read our janazah, and we all need to be prepared to do that for our parents as well. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Remember the hereafter, and you will remember why you are here and what you are after.
Now, if I told you that somebody really, really loved you, always looking out for you and always prayed for you, and no matter what position they were in, and even when they were about to depart from this world, they were making du'as for you, how much love would that bring out of this hasti in your hearts? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when the blessed companions were lowering him into the Rozai Mubarak, and Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was praying for me and you, praying for his ummah. Now, when somebody loves somebody to such an extent that even at that time, Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was praying for us, even to the extent that even now, today, at this time, the best of creation is praying for us. When our deeds are presented in the court of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if we've done good, Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam thanks Allah Azza wa Jal. If we've done bad, then Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asks for forgiveness for us. Where will you find such a beloved Habib? We always talk about our love for Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but the way to increase that is just imagine the love that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has for you. And next time it's time for salah, don't think it's inconvenient. Think that hasti loves me so much that even at that blessed time they were praying for me, and therefore for the love of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm going to protect my salah, I'm going to read the Quran, and I'm going to change my life. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Remember the hereafter, and you will remember why you are here. Remember the hereafter, and you will remember why you are here and what you are